whether it's something quickly, kind of give my body of experience, whether it be educational as well as work experiences. And if there's anything personal you might want to know, you can just hit me up on a text or something, and we can talk and chat. From an educational perspective, I received my bachelor's degree in political science from a college called Carthage College. I also played football. I had a full ride scholarship. Thought that after I got my degree, I would go to law school, but at that time, couldn't afford it. So I went to work, and as I was traveling through my experiences, I ended up receiving my master's degree in management, and then later, about 6, maybe 7 years ago, I received my doctorate degree in organizational leadership. In terms of my work experiences, I worked for a company called Delphi for roughly about 16 years, where I started off as a first line supervisor, and then I ended up being the plant manager of that organization of a million square foot facility, revenue roughly about 45 billion in revenue at that time. I wanted to see how good I was during that time. I wanted to take my talents to other companies to spread my wings. I ended up going to a company called Schneider Electric, where I became the VP GM. Is where I got a real good breadth of international experiences, where I negotiated contracts in Poland, Hungary, Germany, Japan, you name it. That company provided me with just a great amount of experience to excel and show my talents. From there, I ended up going to a company called Rockwell Collins, who recruited me based on one of my colleagues that knew me from my past. I became the VP of Commercial Systems, and I was supporting about 2.8 billion in revenue of business. I oversaw roughly 9 facilities, had 4,000 people working for me, and then I was on my way to become the senior vice president of Rockwell Collins. And my wife decided that moving to Cedar Rapids, which would be where I would have to go, was not a good choice for our children because we live in Southern California. And so I then had to go and find another job. And so I did, put my resume out there, and I ended up being the president of Leach International, which is a power distribution company for aerospace and defense. Wonderful company. I spent about 7 years there, grew profitability from about 15 million in revenue all the way up to about 35 million in revenue. And so I then became kind of known in the industry as the turnaround kid, going into organizations and turning around culturally as well as financially. And so I got sought out by a company called GKN, which is a transparency organization that make many of the windows that you see in the airplanes, as well as for our F-35 fighter jet in America, which is being bought throughout the world. After I turned that company around, I decided, well, you know, I'm pretty good at turning around companies. I might as well just step out on my own and become my own entrepreneur. And so I did that. I created a company called Signature Leadership. And Signature Leadership is a company that provides value by actually going inside of a company and understanding the inputs that are coming in that creates problems financially, as well as the outputs in terms of customer satisfaction. So I go in and work with the executive leadership team, along with the CEOs, and put in strategies that create change. Along with that, I'm also an executive coach, so I also coach up the leadership team if they don't understand some of the concepts and some of the strategies that we have to go off and go do and put in place. And I hold hands with those CEOs and presidents and vice presidents as I help them navigate through issues and so forth. I am today, I received actually about a week ago, just signing all the letters and all that stuff. About a week ago, I accepted a huge job with Lockheed Martin Space Division. So effective uh, August 3rd, I'll be an employee of Lockheed Martin, which is huge. And they want me to come on and really drive a lot of the leadership changes that I've done in the past and create execution. And then, of course, with that comes additional responsibilities based on some of the things that we negotiated and so forth. So if I were to talk a little bit about John Danley, who I am really, I think I'm a thought leader. I'm an individual that really creates value through execution and also people focus. I think that my goal is always not to leave anybody behind. I have a good financial background where I led P&Ls, and my business acumen has shown based on experience that I do it quite well, and I've executed, which is why my body of experience say what they say, is because I also have a tendency of getting bored in organizations. When I've done something great, I have a tendency to look for the next thing. So that's something that I gotta fight myself with. Having said that, I talked about my educational experience. Going into this role of with Lockheed Martin, my goal is to become a senior VP running about $2 billion worth of a revenue business, which is what I love to do. I like creating change, and I like ensuring that there's economical, financial stability that will, one, sustain employment as well as increase it. I would like to, at some point, to start serving on boards, because I believe that I can help other companies to guide them to financial success, as well as provide advice. I will continue to work and operate Signature Leadership. I'll just have someone work that for me. But I expect for that business to grow to about 10 million in revenue. And then bottom line is, my goal is always to create value and help people achieve their dreams by focusing on them in their personal development. I'm also a published author. Wrote a book called Dimensions of Leadership. I felt that after getting my doctorate degree, I needed to publish something to really serve the degree well. And so my goal is to write another book soon here. But I want to make sure that I got other things understood in terms of this new opportunity that I have. So with that, those are my experiences. Those are the things that I've done. Any questions?
Yes, let's open the floor up to questions. I think that's so amazing. So what do you think is, okay, so let me just backtrack. You're talking about adding value. I think that's really something that needs to be driven home, because not everyone realizes that they can't show up. You have to show up, but you also have to add your own special spin on it. So I guess, when did you realize what your specialty was as a turnaround kid? Was it when you decided not to move to Grand Rapids?
Yes, it was actually that when I had to decide that I wasn't going to become that senior vice president for Rockwell Collins, I had to go into an organization that was a little bit smaller, but at the same time, I felt that I had the experience to make it scale. And so when I began to understand the financials of the organization along with the culture, I began to put strategies together in terms of how to grow our profitability by nearly 16% year over year, which is kind of unthinkable in terms of what companies are doing today. And that's when I realized at that point that I was the turnaround kid. The secret in building success financially is really understanding, one, the issues that drove the financials the wrong way, and then getting people engaged and creating ownership at every level so that they're able to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And when they see that, you'll find that people do amazing things. And every organization that I go to, I get constant email traffic. Hey, Dr. Danley, where are you at? I'd like to come work for you again. I had so much fun. You knew what we needed to do. The company now is not doing as well, and this and that. And, you know, and so I think that's part of the legacy, right? When you have done great things and people want to follow you because of you've inspired them, I think that that creates some significance for your legacy. And they don't realize that really it was them doing all the work. I just shared with them the vision. We created it together, and then they executed, and that's really what it was.
Right. So it's like once you get to a certain level, it's not just about producing, it's about producing producers, right? So
Yes.
these people had it in them all the time because they're the ones doing the work, but there's another step that has to be taken. There's another level that has to be achieved to sort of have the confidence to just assume responsibility for that role. So I think that's amazing. So I did have one more question, and then I wanted to get some other people's input about the entrepreneurship. So, I mean, that's a move that a lot of people who at your level are not willing to take. When I look at senior managers who are, you know, older and have kids, they're not willing to take a risk like that, right? That is a significant step to get out of your comfort zone. And it's one thing to do that when you're in your 20s and 30s. It's a whole nother thing to do that when you're in your 40s and 50s. So um, I don't know how old you were, but I commend you for already having a family and deciding to do that. And then also I wanted to know if you had advice for how other entrepreneurs could be willing to make a move like that, particularly entrepreneurs of color.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I have always wanted to step out on my own, probably about 10 years ago. And there was fear of, you know, do I have the ability to really go out and do that? Is the talent there truly? I began to throw all kind of roadblocks in front of me, not realizing that, you know, hey, I'm doing it right now for someone else. Why wouldn't I have all those assets that I need to be successful? So I just, you know, I had to look at myself and say, hey, look, I'm fearless. I'm confident, and my leadership courage is very high, very high. I mean, in order to do the things that I've done, you have to have a significant amount of courage. So I had to wait for the opportune time, make sure that all my financials were correct personally, and also to ensure that my family could sustain and do what it needed to do. So I waited on timing. So I did that. The only thing that I couldn't predict was COVID-19. Um, if COVID-19 did not hit, signature leadership would be blossoming because I had some contracts in place. My name was out in the industry, and I was getting a significant amount of traction. And most companies did what I would have done with consultants and things of that nature. They are the first ones to go when it comes down to costs. So they did what I would have done. So in terms of the advice that I would give to others, let me first share with you that I received advice from people that I'm very close to. My roommates, I still have good dialogue with them, and they're attorneys and business leaders. And they said, John, why are you doing it? That's crazy. Dude, you're making so much money. That's just don't do it. And I'm like, but I gotta chase this for me. I don't want to look in the rearview mirror and say, I wish that I had done that. And and so, although I got their support, there was probably fear on their side that they felt that as a Black leader, I needed to be where I was to continue to help others. But then at the same time, they recommended whatever they could do to help me. Let's just make sure we stay close. So the recommendation I would tell anyone that's trying to go out on their own, one, make sure that you have financial stability for at least a minimum of 12 months. A minimum of 12 months. So you want to be able to make sure you can pay all your bills and things of that nature. Also, step out and start looking at things to have like an A and a B and a C plan, because typically that A plan doesn't always yield as fast because that's what you desire. Have a B plan to also ensure that you still have some dollars coming in to ensure your stability in terms of sustaining you and your family. And then continue to network. Get yourself very active networking. If you're not used to networking, it's going to be very hard to get your business off. You have to be able to go places and not get paid for it. You may get some opportunities that won't pay as well. I mean, you have to assess the risk. So my thing is, one, make sure that you're financially able, at least have savings of 1 year at a minimum. And if you could do more, I say great. And then two, I think that you need to just have an A and B and C strategy to make sure that you can execute and keep dollars flowing in. And then three, you got to network. I mean, the world is full of networking, and social media is huge, but it's how you strategize social media to work in your benefit. And so those would be the three things that I would say that one, if they want to step out on their own, to go and execute.
I think Jose has shared a very extensive question. I can read it out. How do you reconcile your faith, your leadership perspective, especially as a person of faith and one who does not want to leave anyone behind? I presume that you are driven by servant leadership and other styles inspired by it, and management culture. So how do you reconcile your faith, your leadership perspective, and management culture, mostly driven by boss subject tendencies and managing people over managing tasks?
So I'm going to try and attack that several ways. First of all, I'm God-fearing, and I would not have been here without that. I think my faith has created the coverage for me spiritually. And I've always wanted to create value all my life and help and support people. My parents were sharecroppers. Yes, they were. They picked cotton and they didn't have formal education. Neither one of them finished high school. And what they did was they ensured that their children were educated and tried to make sure that we had the best environment. I felt like we lived in a middle class neighborhood, but I was always educated with Dr. Martin Luther King's teaching, John F. Kennedy's leadership style, his charisma style, Malcolm X. I was, Muhammad Ali. My parents educated me along the way, and I continue to educate myself. So right away, you will find that people are very complicated at best, but yet simplistic. So the thing that you can control is what you give. You can't control what you get. And what I mean by that is that my leadership style is transformational, and I give respect. I give honesty. I'm a very ethical minded individual. I believe that my business acumen of doing the right thing all the time and ensuring that that there's no ambiguity about what's right and wrong, and and asking questions and be very fast to listen and slow to respond, I think has allowed me to be able to balance things that come my way. I'm not afraid of being uncomfortable. I'm comfortable being uncomfortable as an African American executive. I've learned how to be that way, and I think my faith gives me that I'm not afraid of actually anything for myself. I probably am more afraid for my children growing up in this environment as it is today. So I try and balance myself with faith in terms of treating people fairly. I don't play politics. I'm not good at it. So why do it? I'm very upfront and for real about how I lead. Everyone would always understand exactly where I'm coming from. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, not at all. I make mistakes, but I learn from them as well. And I try and make sure that I surround myself with great people that respect people. I always hire people that are smarter than me, and but I also believe in diversity. And I probably am I will say, I'm not afraid to hire people of color. My whole history and my background demonstrates that. Whereas some leaders that look like me are sometimes hesitant because they're afraid of what they may look like. So my leadership acumen is to always be forthcoming, be aware, but not be afraid or intimidated, because that's just not who I am. I'm very comfortable, as I said, being uncomfortable, and I think it's made me a pretty good leader. I'm still learning that, by the way.
And
if I may follow up on that question, do you mind, Amma?
No, okay, it's okay. I have one AI for a question, but okay, go ahead, Joseph.
So yeah, the other thing that is interesting for me to, I've been in the leadership space for quite some time, and one of my biggest concerns, I was trained in leadership too, so one of the biggest concerns was always that all the literature and everything you would read was always informed by the white perspective. I mean, the white folk wrote about it, and John Maxwell's and so on. They were very dominant in that space. So I'm glad that you're writing some stuff. But I wanted to know are there some things you learned from the Black community that you are actually beginning to introduce in this space that is dominated by a lot of white experience and white sort of knowledge systems? Are you bringing some of that stuff on and kind of really beginning to speak more and more about some of these values that we have in our communities in this space, especially in training younger entrepreneurs and younger leaders, that they're entering this space and they're encountering the things that you're encountering, but you want to have tons of other people actually embracing the same values that you've been embracing, that are very myriad of the faith community and so on and so on. But yeah, what are some of the things that you see happening with Black leaders? Like you just talked about the fear of hiring a fellow Black people because of the way they might look like. You're challenging that going to get the grade. So you're kind of really building something completely different here, which is a big challenge, I know. So I wanted to hear more about some of that.
So that's a very good question, and I think it's still being, from my perspective, I'm still looking at it. My goal, first of all, is to write another book, as I indicated. The next book that I'm going to write is actually going to be focused on Black leaders. I don't think that we have enough information on Black leaders that have shaped and molded culturally America and the world, as well as Black leaders that have made a difference that many children probably will not hear about in the schoolroom. I mean, when people, for example, I was always interested in Black leaders when it came down to, I think I was in getting my political science degree, and we were studying Karl Marx, and that's all they focused on. But people didn't realize that LaSalle, which is a Black leader, was supporting Karl Marx, and he never gets really mentioned as his efforts in terms of what he was doing wrapped around Karl Marx, whether you like Karl or not. It was just one of those things that I've always been interested. So it's always the background of us is always not pulled forward. So I've been a part of diversity programs, whether it be at Collins or whether it be at the other companies that I work with. I've always been very involved in community related things. So I've been a part of the Chaka Khan Foundation, where I support women that are at risk, as well as young children that are subject to gang violence. I also do counseling with Long Beach gang-related communities, where I go in and I speak. And so what I found is that they don't know a lot about Black leaders. And so that inspired me to start like collecting research on how can I put Black leaders out there in a storytelling way, where our today and our children of tomorrow can pick up something and be informed on what, in my mind, the 15 Black leaders that have transformed, like in the early 1900s all the way to the 20th and 21st century. So that's where I'm at in that regard. I agree with your comment about John Maxwell. He has a huge space in which we've not entered, and I'm trying to enter into that space. And it's difficult because he has a reach farther than mine, but I think you have to start from somewhere. And so that's why I try and work with companies like the Toro Company, work with GKN in the past, as well as some other companies, and putting my name out there to create that education process for diversity and coaching. And many of those companies are very interested in Signature Leadership being a part of their brand as well. But it takes time to do that. And I think that just trying to inch my way into that, I think is going to pay dividends, if not seen today, but hopefully in the next 2-3 years.
Wonderful. I do have more comments and stuff, but I'm not gonna, take more time. This is an interesting subject, very important, to talk about. So I'll let others ask questions and move on. But excellent. Thank you for answering.